Welcome to this retrospective biography on the artist Frida Kahlo. Since birth, Frida's life was riddled with troubles. Born Magdalena Carmen Frida Kahlo y Calderón on July 6, 1907, she had a German father and Mexican mother. This mixed heritage was a large influence in her art that we'll see in the future. Other notable facts about her birth and very early life was that she had polio as a child, which left her with a limp that she would have for the rest of her life, and was something that continued to affect her throughout her life. Her father was also a professional photographer, which influenced her interest in the arts. As Frida began school, she enrolled in the National Preparatory School in Mexico City in 1922. In fact, she was going to study medicine when she grew up. In 1925, she went through a tribulation as she was in a bus accident and underwent 30 surgeries in order to be able to stay alive. During her recovery from these surgeries was when she learned how to paint and immersed herself in the arts. As you can see, the painting on the left is an example of this. This was one of the first known portraits that Frida Kahlo made, and she made it during her recovery. Kahlo was married in 1929 to Diego Rivera. After marrying him, she began changing her personal style into what she is recognized for today. Specifically, the dress and the jewelry she wore were more of a Mexican woman. Indeed, this is what she thought that Diego wanted, a traditional Mexican wife. With him in the 1930s, she arrived and traveled in the United States, as she had received commissions from multiple cities for murals to be painted. During this time, she also had many failed pregnancies. The painting on the left is one that she painted in 1931, depicting her and her husband, Diego Rivera. The inability to have children had a massive impact on Kahlo. Indeed, that can be seen through her art. In this painting, Henry Ford Hospital, 1932, Frida depicts her emotions about not having children. Indeed, she shows the bloody portrait of herself twisted on the bed, as there are many connections to her. For instance, there is the womb on the very top left. In the top middle, there is a fetus, and the bottom middle, for example, is an orchid in the shape of a uterus. This shows that Frida Kahlo had been thinking about her pregnancies and her miscarriages for much longer after they happened, and they even made it into her art. In 1939, Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera's marriage ended. This divorce was due to extramarital affairs. Specifically, Rivera had slept with multiple other women, while Kahlo slept with multiple other women as well as men. At this time, Frida Kahlo painted one of her most famous paintings, known as The Two Fridas. Indeed, you can see in the painting that is on the left that she paints two sides of herself, the colonial side, which comes from her German father, and the Mexican side, which comes from her Mexican mother. Indeed, the colonial side has ripped out her arteries and is bleeding. This is an example of what had happened during the marriage. She had conformed to what she thought Diego Rivera wanted. Although they had divorced due to disloyalty, Frida Kahlo and Diego Rivera became a couple once more in 1940. Following this, they immediately moved into Kahlo's childhood home, La Casa Azul, which means the Blue House. Shortly after, however, Kahlo had to undergo numerous surgeries because she was generally unwell in the late 1940s and early 1950s. Although Kahlo had never been completely healthy, she also used drugs and alcohol to cope with her illness, which made her symptoms worsen. As a result of multiple hospitalizations and surgeries, she died July 13, 1954. The painting on the left, Self-Portrait with Portrait of Dr. Farrell in 1951, shows that Kahlo had never stopped thinking about painting, even when she was on her deathbed. Because she was such a prominent artist, No biography of Frida Kahlo would be complete without reviewing some of her most famous works. The first painting, Self-Portrait with Thorn Necklace and Hummingbird, is an example of how Frida loved playing with her identity. This is an example of her representing her Mexican identity. The second picture is another exploration of Frida's identity. Indeed, this is a picture of the painting Self-Portrait with Cropped Hair, made in 1940 by Frida Kahlo. It shows how Frida never wanted to conform to society. Indeed, it is rumored that she liked wearing suits a lot and was scolded by the other women for it, mostly her family. The last painting pictured here is Self-Portrait along borderline between Mexico and the United States, created in 1932. This was a representation of how Frida had felt conflict within herself as she had moved between Mexico and the United States. She finally ended up in Mexico to live out the rest of her days in the 1940s. Thank you for listening to this biography of Frida Kahlo.